Well, we could just. It's not like we got introductions anymore.
Have we pushed the play button yet?
Yeah, it's already going, Lance.
It's been going. Okay. All right, we're going live in 5, 4, 3. Hello and welcome to R.O.A.R, everybody. This is NPR News.
We're not even doing introductions.
Special.
We haven't done introductions in a while, but we do got.
I know we got out of the habit of doing it.
I think this is the first time we're doing 4 people on a show, isn't it? Did we do a 4-person before? I thought we did a share mic over at the crib. No,
we didn't do it. No, yeah, maybe we did.
I thought we shared mic there.
Yeah, at my house
with Penny.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that was with Ruth, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was with Ruth. It was one of the ones we didn't.
Yeah,
it was one of the ones we didn't air.
Thank God. Well, we got Lance Lashaway here from where you live, Frontier.
Yeah, Frontier.
God, where the hell is that?
No. If you're from Frontier, you pronounce it Frontier. Okay, thank you.
Where the hell is that at?
That's like somewhere in the southern part of the county.
If you follow the sunshine, if you find the sunshine pump and follow the pipe all the way back at the end, you'll find Frontier. It's so far back in, they have to pump the sunshine in.
Well, Lance, how many voters you got out there? Like 3?
10.
There's 6 of us.
No, how many people voted in that last election there? Do you know?
Maybe
all 6.
15? No, like 25-ish. Yes.
25-ish?
All 25.
I know, well, I don't know necessarily in Frontier, but I know someone made a comment from one of the rural townships or communities that nobody goes out there for campaigning. You know, like neither the sheriffs went out there.
Where would they go?
I mean, you have town hall meetings and stuff like that.
Well, think about it. It's a lot like America, where Hillary didn't come to Michigan because she didn't need to.
Well, I mean, there's 25 votes. I mean,
I know.
So at the end of the day, when you got a busy
well,
schedule,
to be fair, there was 25 last election. How many people actually voted last election? It was like one of those special ones, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was
Nobody
Trump,
knows
right?
about.
Oh, you mean that election?
No,
okay,
yeah,
like
midterm.
a millage election.
Midterm.
Yeah, I was being specific.
Okay, I'm thinking of like the Trump election. Like how many people you think voted
in 2016?
Yeah, 16.
There was quite a few.
Yeah,
actually,
like 50.
It was in the hundreds at least.
That was the banner year for Hillsdale. I mean,
I don't know.
There was a lot of people came out.
Is that many people live in that community?
Well, when I ran for school board, 300 and some voted for me.
Really?
And I didn't win.
Okay.
Yeah, but that 300 and some was his whole family. But
yeah, I don't recall.
That's true.
It's Frontier.
Yeah, it's Frontier.
It's Frontier.
Well,
that was only half of them.
We will, Penny. Well, so we got Penny here too. So we got 4 people in the office, but 3 microphones. So Penny and I are going to share a mic. But no, I recall seeing some of those rural areas like Montgomery, Frontier.
Montgomery?
Is that what it's called?
Frog Eye.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I don't know what that
it's been called Frog. It was Frog Eye at first when the railroad first came through there.
Gotcha.
Then they changed to Montgomery.
I think that's where the complaint was coming from, that the people don't campaign out in those rural areas.
From Frog Eye?
And I get it because I'm John. We were so damn lined up and busy with all these other communities that I guess our excuse is just there's not enough time.
Well, an excuse is effective.
But hell, Lance, you live 41 minutes away from my house. 41 when I got in the car when I left your place.
If you don't commit civil infractions, yes.
Well, I can't because I'm a target, Lance, in our community. But 41 minutes, I was surprised. Like when I got in the car, I was like, "Oh shit, 41 minutes!" Like,
Hillsdale's huge.
Yeah, I mean, like I was just really surprised it was that far out. I guess I'd never realized.
That's why when you're from Frontier, you only come to town once a week.
Well, you can't, John. I mean, when you're doing the campaign, you can't go from like say Osseo to Frontier.
Here's
like
the thing.
when you do,
it's tough.
Osseo to Frontier is only 20 minutes.
I know. Well, the thing is when you're trying to hit these times of when they have their meetings,
it's tough.
It's tough
sometimes
to do.
We had what was that one? We had Ransom, and
when you had like 2 or 3 of them.
We had Ransom, Fayette, and
I don't know why everybody in our community does these meetings on 2 days out of the month. The same 2 damn days for everybody. So it's very difficult.
Tough. Yeah. It's tough. It's tough to make it to all of them.
Yeah, it's hard to get it throughout the year. I mean, we got a little bit longer time now. So we
right.
Last time we didn't. When you if you do it 6 months in advance or something like that, you don't have time to hit them all.
No, and also going to those meetings, there's not very many people that attend those meetings to begin with.
No, there's 2. Outside of the board.
Well, if there's 2,
you're lucky to get 2, unless it's a hot topic.
Yeah, like when there's going to
be. Then you'll get 5.
Yeah. Yeah, the 5 that are ticked off.
Well, we got lots of hot topics now, right?
Well,
we got that one big one that we talked about last time with the undersheriff, right?
You mean when he didn't profit, so it's not a crime?
Yeah. Well, Lance, what do you think about that? You're a common citizen here. Obviously, you're on social media. Yeah. I mean, as opposed
you're
to
one of the commoners. You're one of the commoners.
As opposed to an uncommon citizen.
You're one of the commoners.
No, I mean, what do you think, Lance? I mean, you expressed how you feel about this on social media a lot. So
I dabble sometimes.
Quite a bit. I mean, being realistic though. I mean, as a layman. I mean, I'm a layman when it comes to this stuff. I mean, I could tell that there are criminal action that took place here.
Everybody knows not to lie, not to steal, not to kill.
Oh, John, I wasn't recording on my phone. I wanted to try to test that too.
Oh.
But okay, no. But I mean, what do you think, Lance? I mean, it never saw an attorney, right?
Well, it's pretty easy. It was forgery, right?
Yeah, I actually have the documents. I FOIA'd them.
Well, he admitted to it, didn't he?
And
that's what I thought.
He had a confession letter in the paper, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a confession letter.
Last I checked.
Let's talk about that letter just a minute. That was a confession letter. That wasn't an apology letter. See, my idea of an apology letter is, I'm so sorry that I've brought dishonor upon my community, upon my family, and upon myself. I'm sorry that I've done this thing. I will do what I can to earn the public trust back, period. That's an apology.
And how would you sign it?
But I'd have somebody else do it because it's not forgery, because they wouldn't be profiting.
Could I sign that letter for you?
Yeah. But see, it's just like who wrote the letter for him, right? Because it wasn't an apology letter in my eyes. It was more of an excuse of why I did what I did, but then at the end, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I had to do these things because the treasurer wasn't doing her job. That's what it was. That's really what it was. It's like when your mother says, apologize, you go, I'm sorry you're ugly, right? That's not an apology.
Right. I mean, I totally agree. We're going to get a lot of the thin blue line sympathizers or
I'm sure
friends or family that are close to this say that we're hating or we're just being negative.
That's why a sheriff shouldn't be part of the thin blue line. He should be an administrator from the public that is not part of the fraternity.
Now, having that discussion with Julie Games, so I tried to explain to her what a citizen advisory board is. And she's like, well, how are you going to get these people on those boards? One person per community on these boards, a volunteer. It's hard enough to get people to run for elections and things of that nature. It doesn't have to be someone outside even those boards. It could be the township supervisor in every community.
Yeah.
That's simple.
It could be somebody from the township board.
That's what I'm saying, a treasurer or whatever. It don't matter.
Here's the thing. It needs to be done. Our founding fathers understood that, and this is why our electoral college is run different by each state. Each state can come up with the way that they run their electoral college. Our founders did that for a special reason, and that's because it makes it much harder to stack boards or stack votes. It makes it much harder to do those kind of things. So we need to do the same thing when we do the Citizens Advisory Council. Is each township needs to decide how that volunteer is picked. Either somebody volunteers, or they have a vote at the township hall, or somebody gets assigned.
Okay, so let's just role play here.
Okay.
All right. You're the sheriff now. How do you start this? How do you tell them, hey, this is what's going to happen? How do we get this moving as making it kind of not just for Rutan, but whoever comes after you in that seat?
Well, it's very simple. I've already got the construct of it written up, and it works a lot like the Senate. You have a first class, a second class, a third class, and a fourth class. So what you want to do is you want, let's say we take the townships by alphabetical order. So the first 4 serve and everybody serves for a year, and that first class gets picked on January 1st. They serve till the next January 1st. Class 2 gets picked on April 1st. They serve for a year to April 1st. So what it is, you've got 18 people on the board, but every quarter, a certain amount of them change. What that does is that makes sure that you have continuity, number one, but it also makes that you got new people coming in all the time so that you don't get the same situation.
What's continuity mean?
That means that you've got people that have the same thing, that you have people that know what's going on, what the system is, so that when the new people come in, you don't have, you don't want every quarter 18 new people and having to get up to speed with what's going on, what investigations are going on, what complaints have been made against the sheriff, what complaints have been made by officers against the sheriff.
This is why the
county
commissioners have offset years as well.
Yeah, for the same reason. So you've got continuity, but yet you get new people in all the time so that you don't get a faction, right? This is, Madison said faction is the enemy of all popular government. And so you can't deal with the causes of faction, but you have to deal with the effects of faction. And he said because people themselves are susceptible to faction, then there needs to be checks and balances put in place. And so this is what
this whole thing is.
Sure, it's checks and balances on top of checks and balances. So what you have is the way they're elected and the way their terms run is a check and balance to keep to deal with the effects of faction. And then also the group itself is a check and balance against the sheriff's department to keep faction, the effect of faction, from doing just what we saw happen this last week. You should not have friends letting friends forge, right? Friends don't let friends forge.
Well, which I noticed this last couple weeks here.
Get that. Yeah, there you go.
What I noticed is that there is no check for the sheriff except for the election.
Well, Lance,
there is absolutely no check.
During Rutan's campaign last time, this is, I guess even more recently, when I talked to people to explain what this is all about, the Citizen Advisory Board, ironically, I use Carl Albright as an example, and it just so happens that this happened with Carl Albright this last week.
Well,
but
now I didn't predict the specifics of what would happen. But in 2016, I predicted specifically. I predicted these things that would happen within the sheriff's department in 4 years. I predicted them.
But I use Carl as an example because Carl and Tim are best friends, or at least real close friends. Mm-hmm. And so if Carl pulled your wife over and he thought she was attractive, not to say that he would ever do this, but if he thought your wife was attractive and he wanted to make a move, who can your wife complain to?
Me.
You, but I mean, who do you complain that to? Like, who do you file that complaint with?
There wouldn't be a complaint.
I understand that, Lance, but
what he's saying
is,
if the fox is in charge of the hen house, who counts the hens, right? And this is part of the problem. Most people don't realize the absolute sheer power of the sheriff's department. And it's just like the one ring that rules them all. Most mortal men can't handle that kind of power. And so there needs to be a check and balance on that kind of power, not just every 4 years, but every day. And that's what the Citizens Advisory Council is out. Now, last time when I was campaigning, I remember at the Republican Party meeting, Tammy Dow gave her little spiel, Tim Parker gave his little spiel, and I gave my little spiel. Of course, Tim went last, and he made fun of my Citizens Advisory Council because he said at that time, quote, or paraphrase, I should say, if I'm sheriff, I don't need a Citizens Advisory Council to make decisions. I will make the decision.
That one too. Yeah.
So the problem is when there was not a special investigation called in, then obviously the sheriff failed to make the call that he should have called, right? This is the whole reason why you have a Citizens Advisory Council, so that you don't have the fox in charge of the hen house.
Well, if you don't have one, then you can do whatever you want.
That's the problem then, isn't it?
We know that the power of the judge, the power of the prosecuting attorney is a strong power as well.
Yes.
What a lot of people don't realize is in order to see the judge or to see the prosecuting attorney, you have to do it through the sheriff's department. So that's why...
Ultimately, that's where the criminal justice system starts.
And that's why it's super important to have this checks and balances. None of us could hold the sword. We can't wield that power.
Well, here's the thing. I understand the very principles of the Constitution, and I understand human nature, right? And our founding fathers, Madison said in Federalist 10 that faction is sown in the nature of man. If you believe in the Bible, it also says it talks about the sinful nature of man, and I think that's pretty much what Madison was talking about, is this faction that's sown in the nature of man. And because we're human, the problem is a lot of people think that, well, I'm a righteous person, so I wouldn't fall for that. Well, if you think that way, you're a bigger fool than most. Because if you're human, you're susceptible to that.
How about the people that are around you that say, "Oh, he would never do that"?
Well, that's part of the problem, right? So, and we have to look at justice and due process here as well. Let's take this last situation that just happened. Justice isn't just for the person that's accused. Justice is for society as a whole, right? The society has to feel and have faith that the system worked and that there was due process. If you're accused of something and you have due process and you're found not guilty, then your character and everything is intact. And so it's just as important for those people, like if Carl's a good person and he didn't do anything wrong, then he should have had due process so that at the end his character was intact. To not give him due process wasn't very much of a friend thing to do, was it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, why do you think he didn't get his due process? I mean, it's kind of blatantly obvious at this point, right?
Well, it's speculation on our point, but yeah, the public's going to speculate. When there was not due process, the public's going to speculate that justice did not happen.
And then again, friends and family will go on social media and say we're haters or we're negative.
Well,
what are we supposed to think?
It's like, well, this letter, the letter to the editor, the signature says Carl Albright is the undersheriff for Hillsdale County. Now, the letter underneath says the person's name, Scipio Township. I question.
No, that was Somerset. That's County Gale.
Okay, Somerset Township. Sorry.
Okay.
But did Carl Albert write this letter? I have my doubts.
I don't know. I'm not going to guess one way or the other, but I know it's more of a confession than it is an apology letter. I'm sorry. One of the things that's used in police work all the time is you tell people, wouldn't you feel better? Wouldn't you feel better if you just did an apology letter to the family? Just do an apology letter. That sometimes is used as a trick to get people to actually make a letter of confession, which convicts them in court later on. So somebody should have told him.
You would think he would have known that in his position in the first place. Why would you?
Yeah, don't.
I already know. If I do something, you do not talk.
Do not
period.
talk. A good defense lawyer would have told him, do not make any statements, do not talk.
My question is, did he even write this?
I don't know.
We don't know if he really.
I have to
it.
take it at face value.
So many things we don't know.
But
It's
I
hard
have
to tell what the
and
paper's
that's the
doing
problem.
anymore.
That's the problem. See, and this is where the public is in an uproar because they don't know that they know the whole thing.
And I've said this 3 or 4 times today. This goes along with that freedom or the trust with people, citizens, and government is a tightrope.
Yeah, it's very tenuous.
And when situations like this happen, they're chopping away at the tightrope.
Well,
we're all freaking out and don't know what to do.
Well, let's look at the O.J. Simpson trial. That's a good example to look at, right? A lot of people still feel that O.J. Simpson was guilty.
Oh yeah,
I mean that goes without
that dude
saying.
was guilty, John.
But
Didn't he write a book?
But the fact of the matter is, he had due process, and in that due process, for whatever reason, the jury said not guilty.
Yeah.
Now there was people that were still kind of upset about that and still saw him as guilty. But the fact of the matter is, everything calmed down because the people saw that the system was put in place, and that there was a jury of his peers that said not guilty. Now, for a little bit, they probably didn't accept it. And a little bit, they were still probably upset. But the fact of the matter is, they still had faith in their government, in the justice system, that justice took place. When you upset the due process system, where someone doesn't get due process, it's bad for the person that's accused.
Actually, John, let me back that up because I think OJ actually is a good example, not for the reason why you're saying it. Actually, I think this is a good reason why we don't trust government, because that actually, if you watch the Netflix special on that OJ, it actually stems back to Rodney King, and those cops that beat up Rodney King got let loose.
Well,
and those jurors on their admission on the Netflix special found OJ not guilty, not because there wasn't enough evidence to convict him, but that was to get back at those cops.
Okay,
during that Rodney King. That's a
but let's look at the duty of a jury. Okay, this is part of the other thing. If you're convicted of a crime, you have the choice between a bench trial and a jury trial. But if the judge is going to tell the jury what they must find, isn't it just a bench trial with an audience?
What's the point of the jury? Yeah.
So the whole reason most people don't understand what the duty is of a jurist. The duty is you're not just judging the facts of the case, but you're judging the law itself and the way the law was applied. So I think a lot of the jurists, when they saw what Mark Furman did, and that Mark Furman actually planted evidence because he wanted to make sure that he had a slam dunk case.
Sure.
That bothered people at their very core, that the government would do that. So I think at that point in time, the jury decided, you know what, he might be guilty, but they didn't like, even worse, what the government did. And that is the duty of a jury, is to keep a vigilant watch on the government.
That wasn't a mission. They admitted that as well.
Yeah,
on that,
so that's
on that special.
So that's part of what a jurist's job is to keep a vigilant watch on our government. Who has the most authority of any other group in the United States? It's a jury, right? Because you can kill your wife or boyfriend and escape in a Bronco, and if they say not guilty, not even a judge can do anything about it. So a jury is the highest authority in the United States, and it's there for a reason. Because they're not just judging the facts of the case. They're judging the law itself, and they're judging the government and how they applied that law.
Holy cow, we digressed. I don't even know where we came from with that.
No, that's not digressing at all. That's still part of the due process. It's still part of the faith in the government.
So Sheriff Albright, or Under Sheriff Albright, didn't get his due process here.
And that in itself is injustice.
That's correct. So now we got a situation where it's citizens versus cops in our community. There's a lack of trust within our sheriff department,
Well,
right?
Because it shows it really highlights a two-tiered legal system, doesn't it? Whether it's real or imagined, that's still the view in the public, and it has been cemented now because due process was short-circuited.
Well, it's already fragile because of the national politics. So it's already fragile. And then you can go on YouTube and you can watch hours and hours of bad cops doing bad crap, right? So, and then you come to your own community, and our sheriff department, yeah, they make mistakes here and there, but it gets called out on social media, and you see this, and now you're starting to think, well, they're doing it too. And so it's this. I don't think the local government, when I say local government, I'm saying like our county commissioners, I don't think they're aware of how precious that trust is and how important it is.
Well, the problem is, too, sometimes they're a little bit too insulated. Here's the other thing. When we have so much citizen apathy, and we have citizen apathy for two different reasons, but we have so much citizen apathy because, I mean, even when this came out, you could see the comments where people were going, well, that's Hazard County. Well, in any stereotype, there's a bit of truth, is there not? Or the stereotype wouldn't be funny.
I mean, do you agree, Lance? I mean, is this from a common citizen? Do you see citizen versus cops in your opinion, or citizens versus government just in general?
That was a yes or no question.
No, I don't really like the yes or no questions. I see there's a lot of people who are confusing what's right and what's wrong.
What do you? I mean, when I say that it's creating division,
do you see an us against them mentality?
Yeah, do you see that
between law enforcement and the citizenry?
And I'm saying as a whole, not necessarily I'm seeing it in our community as well, but as a nation, we're seeing that's why 90% of people don't vote.
Right.
Right? Is it because they don't feel that
their vote counts? I hear that all the time. I'm not going to vote. It doesn't matter.
Not only that is their vote is going wasted to a politician that is going to do whatever they want, or that's going to do something like this, and then so when they do this, you're like, screw it. I don't want to partake in that at all. So this discourages people from voting or partaking, being involved in politics in general.
You know, that's why a citizens advisory group is so important, even with the sheriff, because
But
if
we didn't get
people.
Lance's opinion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lance. What's your
Oh,
opinion?
my opinion counts here.
Well, yeah, you're on the
In
show,
about
right?
in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No, it
Wait,
doesn't.
Lance, give us your take, Lance.
Well, you can definitely tell that the police and the citizens are at odds for sure, especially when they think they can do whatever they want and apparently nothing happens.
I mean, I get that vibe too from a community standpoint. It's citizens versus cops. Does that seem like is everybody on the same page here?
Yeah, well, it's not just the cops; it's also the paper and everybody else who is involved in the higher echelon.
I mean, I know that's what we call it, or that's the label, but it's just people that are tied into the system.
Yeah, the system.
The system.
You know, like
You can definitely tell the system and the people are not the same thing.
And that's because sometimes the system gets insulated. This is why I said a Citizens Advisory Council is so important. And this is why it has to be done by 4 classes coming in at different times. So you've got the continuity. Also, so you get people that aren't insulated from the society. You get people that aren't insulated from the citizenship that are coming in.
Which with
Excuse me.
with Facebook, there's no reason for them to be insulated either.
Well,
it's their own.
But even at that, I mean, yes, there's still insulation on Facebook. You know, the Citizens Advisory Council is important for the sheriff as well. How many times do we hear that there was horrible things that happened in the jail and nobody knows because nobody can go in and see? Well, if you've got a loved one in the jail and you hear that there's bad things going on, you can go to your neighbor who happens to be on the Citizens Advisory Council and go, hey, so-and-so said this happened, and I want to know what the truth is. Well, now there is no insulation from the sheriff, so the sheriff can either be held accountable for how he's running that jail, or he can be exonerated for how he's running that jail.
Well, tonight we heard that even if we had a citizen advisory board, that's not going to be satisfied enough for people like you and I. Is what was brought up. So, like, there's never going to be.
When was that brought up?
It was in a topic. I don't want to say who or why, but I try to tell them that's not true. We want total transparency.
Yeah, and that gives total transparency, because the other thing is, right now with the sheriff's department, they said, well, we did this for total transparency. Okay, 2 months later, that's not very transparent. That's pretty cloudy in my book.
Where's the investigation paperwork?
Yeah, that doesn't lend itself to transparency either, does it?
We were told there was an investigation.
Yeah, there's.
Oh, we were? Well, how come we're not FOIAing it? Let me FOIA the investigation.
Yeah, we will though.
Okay, let's.
Why isn't our county paper taking any concern in this at all?
Good question. Good question.
Well, the thing is, and as you know, Lance, they're tippy-toeing, right? We're all stepping on eggshells, right?
Well, and part of the thing, to be fair, newspapers aren't news anymore. Newspapers are marketing tools to sell ads in. And so a lot of times marketing executives don't want to tick off their customers, right? Because they like the money that's coming in to advertise.
Also, if they come, I think this is a lot of it, is if they come at them a certain way, they're not going to get any responses ever again. Kind of like when I call down there, they don't give me shit.
Right, but if you had a Citizens Advisory Council, right, that can walk in at any time, guess what?
Demand answers.
That's right.
Yeah.
So now people aren't insulated.
Right.
It's completely open.
So I think that's what's going on with the newspapers. They don't want to burn that bridge. And I think that's fair to say.
And it's fair. I'm not going to agree that it's right, but it's fair.
Right.
Like somebody was talking about today.
Go ahead, Penny. Get up there.
Kind of like one of the county commissioners today said they didn't want to go up against the chairman because they were afraid of being taken off committees.
So she's got a tippy toe.
So,
Well, then,
yeah,
you
she
know,
has to tippy toe around.
My thing is, it takes courage to do things, and I get people all the time go, "Well, John, you've got all this courage." I don't have courage, but I do know what's right and what's wrong, and I can't justify doing something that's wrong just because it makes life easier.
Exactly. That's how I said. I vehemently said that's wrong.
Yeah,
It's a dictatorship.
But the thing is, if you're going to run for a position, then grow some thick skin, right?
Right.
That's just like I get people calling me names all the time, and I laugh because I worked in a prison 8 years. You can't hurt my feelings. I don't have any. He's just not going to hurt my feelings.
Well, John, and they were arguing for getting stuff done, I guess if you will, because I've heard this a lot. Where they got, if you don't go along, sometimes you just got to get, you want to get stuff done. And
go along to get along attitude.
I asked them if you got 2 wrongs but 6 rights. Is that okay? Like, are you okay with that?
Well, what have they got done though? Like, I don't see anything they've got done.
Regardless, let's
you
just
want to say something, you should probably back up what you're saying.
I mean, it was just in.
Stop being a bully, Lance.
Lance, I mean, we were just in conversation. I know what you're saying, but
stop being a bully.
We were just in conversation, and I was. Man, you guys are mean. Quit being negative, Lance.
You're hurting my feelings. Stop it.
So in the conversation, is 6 rights and 2 wrongs. I said, out of my principle, I can't do that. But you're telling me that's productive?
But see, this is part of the problem with the citizen apathy.
That's what she was.
In 2016, let me finish this point right here. In 2016, we had 15 open races, 15 open positions, and only 3 contested races. That would be like going to the Olympics and watching one runner run the 100 meters, right? And then after they run and they get their time, they put the next runner up and run. That's not competition. Why do they put 7 people or 10 people on the track?
Well, pretty soon that's what the women's limits is going to look like.
Yeah, well, but the fact of the matter is, without competition is what has made this country great. And if we don't have competitions, and I know even at the Republican Party meeting, people get upset at me because, well, if we've already got that seat and it's a Republican, why would we run somebody against them? Because it makes everybody better. You should always have contested races each and every time. Now, I know it takes time, it takes money, but this is the beautiful thing about independence. Independence isn't safe, but it's exhilarating. And people have got to start competing, and they have to start getting involved in their government. Local government has the most power, and it affects you immediately. We need to end this apathy and start getting involved.
Well, it's not sufferable. Like, it's not insufferable, right?
Well, that's what Thomas Jefferson said in the Declaration of Independence. He said the people the people will suffer he said the people will suffer with evils as long as the evils are sufferable, rather than right themselves in their situation. Now, that's paraphrased. That's not word for word. But basically, that's true.
Man, you spit that out real quick. Why don't you say it one more time?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you hear that, Lance?
It was quick. It was fast.
I didn't even hear it.
He said it once before, I think.
It's paraphrased, but he said people people would rather suffer with evils as long as they're sufferable, rather than right themselves in their situation. And that's exactly where our founders were in 1776, and that was the evils became unsufferable at that point in time, and so it was time for them to right themselves in their situation. And we get that, but it just seems like the people are getting more callous to they would rather suffer with evils.
I don't know if they're getting more callous anymore, though. It seems to me that they're a little more up in arms lately.
Well, that's because the evils are getting to a point where they're not sufferable.
No, I disagree with both of you. I think it can get 10 times worse. I think let's
bully him. Let's beat up on him.
Does his opinion matter here?
No, it doesn't matter.
We didn't ask him. Just think about this, though, Lance. Seriously, think about this. I know that we got like quite a few people on Facebook that support our idea on this, right? But 90% of people don't vote, which means the majority. We're not reaching the majority.
Well, in Hillsdale County, only 50% of the people that are eligible to be registered to vote are registered, and out of that 50%. In the 2016 election, we only had, 23% show up?
Yeah, it wasn't very high.
So that means if you get the majority of 23%, that means that only about 7% of the eligible voters are picking who runs the county.
So really what you're saying
scary.
Is your vote actually does matter because nobody votes.
Yes, it's extremely important.
Exactly.
So what I was trying to say, though, is we can go down to the grocery store without getting harassed, generally speaking. We can.
What grocery store are you going to?
We could.
I was going to say, have you seen the hat that I wear?
we can go play basketball. We could.
No, I can't.
We can pretty much do anything we want. We can
Have you
start a
seen me play
business.
basketball?
Yeah.
I can't play basketball.
Yeah, we can go start a business. There's
Have you tried to start a business lately? It's not easy.
Well, I have
Yeah.
many times. So what I'm saying is, it's not insufferable. And we don't need guns, right? Like we don't need guns. Like if they came and took all the guns away, I don't think people are going to fight. I think the guns are going to go, and life is just going to go on until the point where it does become insufferable. I don't.
The problem is once the guns go and it becomes
I know that.
insufferable.
I know
too
that.
late.
It's too late, right?
It's too late.
But I think we're far from that. I think people will be satisfied living in going to the grocery store, playing basketball, and starting a business
Well, as long as
without
life
guns.
as long as life is comfortable, and I see this
That's
all the
what I
time.
mean.
People go, well, I'm not going to put up with it because I get vacation and I get this and I got that and I got these toys.
and it's costing more and more and more to run a business anymore.
Well,
So.
Lance,
it
we're
is.
the only nation in the world where you can go from zero, literally. And somehow you have no food, right? You got zero. You have no food. Somehow tomorrow you got food, right? Or tonight
Yeah, you
got
won't
food.
starve to death.
You're not going to starve to death. Nobody starves to death in America. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody starves.
People are hungry, but they
Well,
don't
that's the
starve to death.
ingeniousness of welfare.
Yeah, they're
you keep people fed, they're not going to be happy.
No, even you can go knock on the door and say I'm starving. Will you give me food?
People will.
People will.
You can go to any
Exactly.
church around here. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting a church.
So people.
People.
I know
will give.
people are going to say people starve in America. Well, that's because they're choosing to starve. You can go
Pretty
somewhere
much.
and get food. Also in America, homeless a lot of times choose to be homeless because I can go from zero if I have the ability to do so. You can go from zero to having shelter real quickly, and that's another thing that's great about this country.
Again, churches have done that too.
That's one thing about our country or Western nations that we're able to achieve this. And it's such a great thing about our country and about Western nations.
That's
Why are
because
we able to achieve this?
Because the free market economy and capitalism has pulled more people out of poverty than any other system in the world.
Right. You can't do that in Syria. You can't do that in other nations. So third world nations and things of that nature.
Ethiopia, Venezuela now.
I don't know if you could do it in Russia, for all I know. I don't really know if you could do it in capitalist nations.
Russia's
I know they're not a third world nation.
And they've got an economic system in place right now that's better than what it was, and it does take care of people a little better than it did before.
Russia's probably doing better. That's why certain people don't like Russia right now.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I don't care about national politics. I care about Hillsdale.
So it's not insufferable to live here, even with all the unconstitutional things that are going on. So I think it's going to get way worse. I don't see how it's going to get any better.
The thing is, my brother and I were just talking about this today, and we know one family here that were very, very supportive of law enforcement until an unfortunate situation happened, and one of them ended up being charged with something that they didn't do. And when that person was taken through the court, that person's sister sat and listened to the state police actually say things that weren't what she saw, that in her opinion were outright fabrications.
It's like seeing a priest cuss for the first time.
That's right. And so
you're
what
like, whoa,
happened
they
was
really do that.
now all of a sudden their eyes were open and they were like, well, there's injustice. But before then, there wasn't. Hillsdale Justice Project, we get the same situation. I've had people go, well, we got to do this, we got to do that, get more members in. But the same people that were saying that, I looked at them and said, we've been here since 2012. Why are you here now? Well, it's because they were doing a nuisance ordinance on us, and they were trying to take my property. Okay, but we were here since 2012. Why didn't you come in then? See, people only come here when they need help. And so people only see the real justice system when they're in it. You get these people all the time that go, well, if you don't want to be in jail, don't break the law. Well, I can tell you lots of people that have been in jail and didn't break the law. Two of them near and dear to us, Anthony Hart and Andy Feather, both were innocent.
How about that Shannon Handy case back in
Shannon Handy, same thing. The man was arrested on his own property. The other thing is the female officer that was involved in that, the very next day she quit. And when she went to Adrian, she actually told the other officers there that the reason why she quit was because that was an illegal arrest and that made her sick to her stomach and she wasn't going to be a part of it. But
That's
that-
that's
but-
a rumor, John.
But the undersheriff, no, that's pretty much confirmed. But the undersheriff went to the county board and said that the reason why people were quitting the sheriff's department was because
Of pay.
they weren't paying them enough money. Well, most times when you get people that are leaving things, like they just had a sergeant that was spent 20 years there and just left. In
Yeah,
fact,
his retirement. The seniority. I mean,
yeah.
Why can't the undersheriff just write a check for somebody then?
Well, that'd be forgery. But anyway, yeah, well,
Yeah, he's not profited.
yeah.
hey, but that segues into Kim Berger with Shannon Handy case.
Yeah.
Kim Berger is going to be the new judge, huh?
Well, she wants to be.
She announced that she's going to take Sarah Lisney's place now.
No, she's running for, not taking.
Oh yeah, it's a taking because nobody's going to run against that.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, there's nobody that. Let me take that back. There's not many people that are running. I'm assuming with you got to have a ticket, right?
Well,
So we can only have attorneys run.
Well, here's part of the problem.
How many attorneys we got in Hillsdale?
Here's part of the problem. Another person came.
Three.
Another person came to me. Another person came to me, and they said that when they were in circuit court, the judge actually violated the law, and they found it themselves, and they took it to their attorney, and they said to their attorney, "Look, the judge violated the law," and she said, "Well, yeah, they did." And this person said, "Would you file a motion for me?" And she said, "No, if I ever do that, then the judge will never hear another one of my motions." Okay, that's a problem, right? That's a real problem. If you've got a judge and you've got people that won't do this is why we get these situations where judges run completely unopposed. The prosecuting attorney runs completely unopposed because all the other people with bar tickets in town know that if they oppose those people in an election and lose, that they've got a hard way to go, right? And it's not like we have a lot of money here. It's not like we have Fortune 500 companies here that are paying those lawyers lots of money to do their thing. So what happens is a lot of these lawyers kowtow to the system.
And this is exactly what happened with Shannon Handy's case because Kim didn't fight for him.
No.
You know, she didn't. She's part of a system where she can't really fight for him.
Well, because if she did, then the judge wouldn't hear another one of her motions, right?
You know, this is what we got. So now she has been in this system for X amount of years, doing all this. Now she's going to be a judge. How do you think it's going to work when she's a judge?
Well, somebody said she made the statement that she knows there's lots of corruption. Okay, but yet you've been a lawyer how long here, and you've been part of the corruption because you haven't done anything to try to change it? You're going to become judge to do it? No. You stand up even when you're the little guy, because if you're not going to stand up when you're the little guy, you're sure not going to stand up when you're the big guy. That's just how it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you can take on cases and accept hurting people, stealing from them, or jailing them,
or
taking
knowing
their
that they're innocent and
Yeah.
allowing them to take a plea.
Right. It's mind-boggling.
It's ridiculous. It's also ridiculous for a judge to sit and coach somebody into saying what a plea is.
Why that attorney's standing there?
Yeah, without the yeah. It's just,
Did I tell you about that, Lance?
the things that keep you awake at night.
Yeah.
The things
The
that
judge
keep you
was
awake at night.
coaching, like trying to just pry it, like,
and we
it's so
wonder
bizarre.
and we wonder why what happened in the Anthony Hart case. And I remember back in 2016. Remember the hit piece that Neil Brady wrote on me and actually threw Anthony Hart under the bus
that
at
was
that
really
point in time.
strange.
And Richard Mack wrote a opposition piece to that, in which he was very succinct in pointing out that the system had a breakdown in every level. It started right with the sheriff's department, a breakdown with the lieutenant at the time, Lieutenant Tim Parker, a breakdown there, a breakdown with the state police, a breakdown with the state sex offenders registry unit, a breakdown of the defense lawyer, a breakdown of the district court judge and the circuit court judge, a breakdown of the prosecutor, a breakdown of the parole officers that do the reports, the pre-sentencing reports, the PSIs, the pre-sentence investigation, and a breakdown of the Michigan Department of Corrections. Let's be fair. It wasn't the Michigan Department of Corrections that found that Anthony Hart shouldn't have been in prison. It was another inmate that was doing his paperwork that found that. Trust me. I worked in the prison system. I know what happens. It's legal beagles that do the work for the RUMs a lot of times in the system. And so I'm very confident it was probably a legal beagle that found the problem. So it was a breakdown from beginning to end. That should never happen in America, because one of the requirements of the judge is supposed to ask them questions to make sure that they actually could have committed that crime that they're pleading guilty to, or no contest. One of the problems is with the prosecuting attorney. The prosecuting attorney is supposed to go through all the elements of the case and try to make sure that the appropriate charges are being done and that it does meet all the elements of the crime. Now, Rod Hassinger, when he was alive, he made a comment to me one time. He said, well, I got 15 dockets on my desk. My whole thing is boo-hoo. You know what? If you can't handle it, let me know so we can hire somebody who can. Don't take the money if you can't do the job. I say the same thing in my business when people start to cry.
I think about the same with the county commissioners.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? You took that position. Either do the job or give it up to somebody who can, but don't cry about it. That's what a loser does. So, and there was a breakdown of the defense lawyer. Defense lawyer should have been looking out for the best interest of the client, whether that's a court appointed or whether it's a paid
attorney. It's not like they don't have communication. They go have lunch together and things.
They're not supposed to. I've seen it happen, but they're not supposed to. But
they hang out, take pictures together.
But the fact of the matter is, even the lieutenant that wrote the request for the arrest warrant has to give by oath or affirmation that everything in that warrant is correct. That's why they have the ability to pull all the paperwork and to look at it and make sure that everything is in place before.
And stop it if anything's
That's right.
out of place.
If it's not in place, then you better head and give oath or affirmation, because at that point in time you're committing perjury.
And that's the lawsuit with now Sheriff Parker was at the time.
Yeah, he was Lieutenant Parker.
So now that was the lawsuit's about with the Anthony Hart case.
But it was a breakdown of the system from the beginning to the end. I mean, it wasn't just one person's mistake.
And Kim Berger was a part of that.
Yes, and she was a big part of it.
And she lost her. I mean, well, they settled with her lawsuit. They settled. I know that
she was working for John Lovinger at the time. Lovinger and Parker. Lovinger, Parker, and Hayes.
So they settled with her lawsuit. Now, and I seen her in action with Shannon Handy.
Well, that's what allowed her to keep her license. But
yeah, I seen her in action with Shannon Handy. I mean, you seen the video, Lance. I mean, what do you? Can you trust someone like that?
No, wait a minute.
Kim Berger?
Let's be.
I've seen it firsthand several times. She doesn't do anything.
Let's be fair here.
Easy.
Let's be fair. What we're talking about are situations. That doesn't mean that they're not good people at heart. That doesn't mean that there's other people that don't like them. It doesn't mean that they haven't done some good things in their life.
We have to say this disclaimer because so many people think we're just out being negative.
Well, here's my thing. You've got to hate the sin.
Go to the
and love
courthouse, you'll be negative too.
You've got to hate the sin and love the sinner. And just because I'm critical of a situation or critical of something that some person has done does not mean that I think that they're useless as a human being or that I think they're no good. But big mistakes that deal with people's lives are
livelihood
are very important things. Now,
family,
that doesn't mean that I think that these person are horrible people. I don't. I think Carl Albright's a good person. I think Tim Parker's a good person. I think Kim Berger's a good person. I think Judge Smith is a good person. If they weren't, people wouldn't like them. They wouldn't be in these different groups. They wouldn't get along with people.
Their friends and family love them.
Their friends and family love them. They're good at church. So don't for a second think that we're bashing the whole person, because we're not. We love the sinner, hate the sin. But I'm still going to call a spade a spade. If it's a bad situation, I'm going to call it a bad situation. If somebody made a mistake, I'm going to point it out and say that was a mistake, right? That doesn't mean that I'm saying that person is a horrible person. I'm saying they made that mistake and that cost somebody. And our law is supposed to be there to make someone whole. So when someone has been injured, even if our government injures them, in our founding fathers understood that in the bounty payments of the cod fisheries debate of 1792, demonstrates that even Madison believed that if the government harms someone, that the law should make them whole. And that's what we're really talking about. So it's not about that the person because they did one bad thing that they're no good and that we should just write them off. But the other thing is we get the same.
What if they do more than one bad thing?
But then call each bad thing a bad thing.
It's a breakdown in the system, right? Yeah. The system breeds this kind of culture.
It does, especially when you put friends in charge of friends. Nepotism, cronyism. These are bad things, and this happens when we don't have competition.
And you got to have people.
This happens with apathy.
And this is the problem with our leadership in our community, whether it be commissioners or township supervisors. I don't think they even know what nepotism is. There's some sort of disconnect here with some of these people. Well, they don't really know what that means.
Can the commissioners and supervisors do anything about the courthouse and the attorneys and the judges?
What they could do is apply political pressure. This is something that I talk about quite a bit. So if I was, let's just use me as an example. Let's say if I was township supervisor, Somerset Center, and saved a sheriff department, I mean, not necessarily the sheriff, but just the department in general, pulls over a citizen out of Somerset and does something completely wrong, like Shannon Handy's case. If I was the township supervisor, that's one of my citizens, right? So I would stand up and say publicly, Sheriff, you're not going to come in my community and do that ever again. You're not going to do this.
How did you find out about it, though, being supervisor?
Well, I'm just saying if it came through the pipeline, whatever news channel, whatever. I didn't.
The supervisor should be paying attention to what's going on in his own community, shouldn't he?
Right, but
that's what we hire him to do.
But I mean,
well, do they get police reports for their own township?
They might not, but they might. They should probably request it. But
can they?
I'm assuming they could. Why couldn't they? I mean, but there's an app. You can see who's getting lodged and things of that nature. But once it does get revealed to them, that's when you stand up, right? You didn't know until it got revealed to you. So once it got revealed to you, it's your job to stand up for the leadership in your community. So as a township supervisor, I would publicly apply public pressure. And can you imagine if 18 township people just stood up in random different communities and said, hell no, this ain't going to happen no more.
Right.
What would the voting be?
Oh, you mean like with Citizens Advisory Council so they know what's going on? just throwing it out there.
Yeah, but I mean, could you imagine if 18, that's not many people. We got 18 people just in our group on Facebook. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But they're not township people per se that are on these boards.
That doesn't mean that the people themselves shouldn't demand
right. But what I'm saying
better
is
leadership.
How do I want to say that? They're of someone like a township supervisor, their voice goes further, right? So that they're in the position of leadership.
Well, it should, because their voice was voted on by a bunch of other people.
That's right. So
they're representative of more people than just them.
Say if it was 18 township supervisors, they stood up and they said, "No, this ain't going to happen. This is wrong." What do you think the voting would be like?
I don't think they'd stand up and said, "This ain't going to happen." I think they'll say, "This is not going to happen."
This is Hillsdale.
Oh, okay.
So.
I'm just being facetious.
Yeah, me too. But okay. But real. I mean, the people in the community, the voting block would change for the next election. Would it? Would people would think differently when it's time to vote?
I would hope so. But the thing is, with the apathy,
nepotism in.
But the apathy that we have, I don't know. I would hope that it would change.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if that's
would
why
the newspaper even cover it?
Well, that's what I'm saying. As leadership, we got to get people that understand that this is wrong and have the balls to stand up.
This is why social media is the new town square, because we haven't had a free press since before William Hearst.
Yeah, well, that's why just like tonight, I'm always commenting to Facebook. This is a good place to air this stuff out because there's nowhere else to air it out.
No, and everybody's lives are too busy now with everything else.
It's just an easy spot to air that stuff out. It makes common sense, and there's a lot of people there to see it.
But to be fair, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Lord Acton in 1846 coined the phrase that power corrupts, and that absolute power corrupts absolutely is the phrase that he coined. And he went on in a letter to one of the archbishops that he was talking to. And one of the things he said is, great men are almost always bad men. And it's not, this wasn't a prosecution of people, but more an observation of the natural law of self-evident truth of the human being. And that is that those in power actually become insulated to the point that when they do bad things, to them, it doesn't seem like a bad thing,
right.
because
or to the people around them.
That's right. It becomes justifiable.
Well,
But what it is in their own mind. Power can do that, and it can change people. And understanding the natural nature of man. That's why citizen advisory councils are so important
Hey,
for the
Lance,
checks and balance.
have you seen the Ted Kennedy, Ted Bundy cases on Netflix?
Yeah.
Did you watch that?
I haven't watched those, but I read all the articles. I've been up on that.
Well, I was watching it, and I watched the last episode.
I don't have Netflix. It's a very left-leaning organization.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so the last.
Did you look at his hat?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you out of here, Penny? All right. Take care, Penny. Have a great night. Don't get pulled over. No. So I was watching the last episode of that case, or it surprised me because this guy, or these people know that this guy killed several young women, right? They got him in. They get him in a trial. He already escaped the system once. He escaped, and then they had to re-find him and get him again. And it was weird because the way that the officers around him that surrounded him, because they were like, there's a lot of officers around him, sheriff, deputies, and stuff, and the judge. The way they communicated with him was respectful. And I thought that was kind of weird. I'm like, wow, in today's society, how do cops talk to people? Particularly people that are caught up into the system, criminally wise.
Right.
Like, how do you imagine that right now? I imagine it like there's...
I'm pretty sure I get talked to worse than that.
Yeah, right. Like, and this judge was like so respectful to this guy that just killed these women, brutally killed these women. The sheriffs and stuff, they handled him with respect.
Well, that comes from leadership and professionalism.
Well, what I'm wondering is if that's all gone. That started getting erased in the 90s, and now we have a lot less of that.
Well, if we look
contempt
at
the cop, this badass attitude.
If we look at the training, there was a huge shift in training at that point in time too. There was a huge shift in public opinion of law enforcement at that time too. So there's you can't just point out one thing. There's many different things that happened that brought us to this point. That doesn't mean that we can't identify them, and that doesn't mean that it's unchangeable. But what we have to do is really understand the dynamics that brought us to this point, so that we can change those things.
Not everybody that gets tied in the criminal system is like some evil, heinous person.
No,
like I didn't have enough money to pay my child support.
Well, when I worked in
that guy doesn't deserve any respect.
When I worked in the prison system too, I used to train red tags. I was
whatever that means.
No, I'll explain it some other time. I'm not going to do it here. But I was an FTO, field training officer. Field training officer.
Okay.
And a lot of times there was this mentality of I'm here to punish people. No, they're here for punishment. The only thing you're here for is to gain compliance by enforcement of rules. Now that means you have to not take things personally. That means that you have to be able to handle yourself professionally, and it's a bad situation. We're around a lot of people that are kind of the bad guys of society, right? You're swimming in the mud, and so sometimes it's
until
tough.
You find out 80% is on death row is innocent.
Well, it's tough. I know, but
people are in there for victimless crimes.
But it's still tough because there are some bad guys in there, right?
Right.
But the problem is, and
40% of it.
And would you shut up for a minute?
No.
Okay. So, but part of the problem is, and we saw this with corrections officers too. A lot of them, their home life, once they started working, especially the higher security prisons. A lot of them had divorces. A lot of their home lives were getting bad.
Look at the statistics of cops with domestic abuse. It's super high.
So what happens is a lot of times people don't know how to leave work at work and leave home at home. And I used to have to remind officers of that. Don't bring your baggage from home in here, and don't take the baggage from work home. You need to leave it here. I understand it's a bad place. I understand, but at some point in time, when it's getting so bad that it's affecting you. And it's affecting your professionalism, your ability to do your job the right way as a professional, then it's time to give it up. It's like my grandfather used to say, if you can't handle the heat, don't be a baker. There's no shame in that, right? That because we're all human beings. So at some point in time, if you can't be the baker, you're going to have to go do a different profession. There's no shame in that.
Lance, we're too young to know or to see the change that happened through the early '90s with the training of the officers. We can only go off of like Andy.
You must be
Griffith's
younger
show.
than me.
No, I mean you were 10 and shit. Like, come
You're
on,
both
man.
babies.
Like I mean,
You know how to read, right?
I was born in '78, right? So
You're
the
both
shift
babies.
changed in the late '80s and the early '90s. I
You wasn't paying attention?
hell no. I was like playing Transformers and stuff.
He was
Are you
trying to
serious?
figure out the difference between ain't and not.
Yeah, I mean like
Still working on that, huh?
Still working on
I
it.
mean, I would think the average child at 10 or 12 years old isn't concerned about the law system or the justice system.
Maybe that's part of the problem.
And that could be, but
Well, and we could even get into
but we did go down the gravy train here.
The New Deal and how the Platonic family was split apart and how
Right.
fathers were taken out of the home.
we did go down the gravy
why
train because
why you have to have two income
we
families.
were talking
and-
about Kim Berger running for office as a judge, right?
Yeah.
So
Then we got on to bad people.
Well, go ahead, blame me for that. But I'm here to tell you, bully, you can't hurt my feelings.
but Sarah also announced too, right? Sarah announced that she was going to.
She's running for circuit court
So
judge. Yeah.
So, and I don't think I mean I could be wrong, but I don't think anybody's going to run against her.
We don't know that yet. It's too early in the system.
Yeah.
It's too early
What's
in the
the
season.
odds? Like, you guys want to gamble on this? Let's
Well,
do gambling odds.
No, I'll tell you what. When the probate court came up, there was what was there? Let's see. There was Val White. There was Michelle Bianchi.
That's the softest
was-
position at judges.
It doesn't matter. What I'm saying is, every time nobody runs for it until somebody's given it up, and then all of a sudden you got 3 or 4
Right,
lawyers that
right.
run for it.
Yeah.
And then whoever wins, then everybody backs off
But
again
that's the
until
soft-
somebody's getting
To
ready
be
to
fair,
retire
that's
again.
the softest position in the county as far as judges.
Well, how many
I don't-
lawyers are in the county?
Boy, I don't know. I don't know if
I
I'm
don't
going to call
know.
it the softest position. I'm going to say it's a different position, but I'm not going to say it's a softer position. There's still some pretty life-altering decisions
got
that you have to make.
CPS cases and
Yeah,
things of that nature,
there's
family cases.
There's some
I would say
life-altering
that's
decisions
probably
that you have to
that's
make.
probably more emotional based because you're talking about children.
Yeah, so I
But
can't.
they probably, I mean, half their caseload's not that. I mean, half their caseload's probably that, and other
well,
half
but
is
you
like
know
other
you got
stuff.
probate, you've got wills and estates and
family fights.
But still, even with wills and estates, it's. I'm not going to call it a soft position. It's a different position, but I don't think it's any softer than any other judge position.
I think it might be viewed as a lesser of.
Well, I think people do view it as that, and I don't think
I don't even
so.
know what the terminology would be used for that, but like in command, maybe I don't know.
Well, I
like,
think if people were gonna label it and give it 3 positions, they'd go circuit court, district court, and probate, and put probate at the bottom. When the fact of the matter is, you have to look at it as the court system,
And
because all 3 of them have some very, very, very
Is there an off-subject button anywhere here?
yeah, go ahead,
off subject
run it,
button. Stop it! Knock it off! You're a bully.
run it, run that,
You bully.
Lance. It's your show, man. You
Yeah.
take control, man.
Oh, I just wondering what's going on.
First time on air, and he's getting all bossy. Look at him. He's a bully.
Well, we're taking your direction now. Take it away.
I got no direction. I'm just here for the ride.
Oh, man.
see,
Right, I was
see?
kinda-
Backseat driver over
Nod-
Yeah.
here.
Nodding off a little bit.
They complain about where you're going as soon as you hand the wheel over to them. Then, I don't want to drive.
Well, so we got Sarah, we got Kim Berger. They're both announced.
Oh, I got one. Okay, my turn. I'll
Yeah,
take the
yeah.
wheel.
There you go.
Let's see, now
Okay.
he wants the wheel.
Go
Well,
ahead.
what do you got to do to make sure? Okay, so have you always had to have a bar to be a lawyer or a judge or an attorney around here?
For a judge, yeah, you had to have.
What
That's
about
that's the state.
Prosecuting attorney and
That's
stuff.
that's a state. It's a state constitutional thing.
Yeah.
And it's been that way forever.
It never used to be that you had to have.
No, probably early 1900s.
Yeah, it used to be that you didn't have to have a bar ticket to be the prosecuting attorney, because that was seen a lot like the sheriff. That was an administrative position, because you always had what was called an assistant DA. But in the last 100 years, we've never elected, and I think they have changed it in the state constitution, 1963.
Well,
that
I
you
think
do
where I'm
have to
going
have-
is a lot of these people aren't
Yeah,
held
that's what it is.
accountable. So what's the difference between not holding these people accountable or just electing somebody who doesn't have a bar degree and seeing what they do?
They can't.
You can't.
I understand that you can.
Right.
That's the problem, I think.
Oh yeah. John and I talk about this, and this
Yeah.
what we're really going to go digress on is something that's outside of our local community and diving into
Well, you have to understand
constitutional.
you have
stuff.
to understand what BAR stands for. It stands for the British Accredited Registry.
And this stems into like a lot of people think that our nation. This is philosophy now. I think our nation's run by like still written by Britain rule, admiral law.
Well,
maritime law.
When you become a lawyer, you get the title Esquire.
Yeah.
Esquire is a noble title. It's not a title in America by any stretch of the imagination. It is a noble title.
And this is also why they have the gold trim flags in the courthouse.
Well, that's because we've gone into admiralty law in
61.
the 30s.
No, 1861.
Yeah, but in the 30s we stopped arguing law and started arguing process and procedure in court.
So
more
the whole
so
process,
than the law.
honestly, if you want to get down to it, Lance, is the whole process is unconstitutional. You should be able to go in there and articulate and fight for yourself. You shouldn't have to hire an attorney to do so if you want to. You should be able to hire anybody you want as an attorney if you so choose to want to.
Right.
And these are the things that that is a larger battle than dealing with, say, forgery with the undersheriff. This is something that we would have to take on a national
Baby
level,
steps.
right? Yeah,
Baby steps.
And I think the only way to get into that is by winning communities over, like in an estate.
But see, the problem is you're not going to win communities over because this system's already in place. So good luck with that.
If you want to take a hopeless and helpless stance on it, then why do anything?
Hey, we can
right? Why do anything?
We can relate.
No,
that's a good point, John.
So my thing is,
we need to buy an island somewhere.
I don't care. I don't care if you're. One thing I learned in the military is it doesn't matter if you get a die in place order. If you're in a battle, you fight. It's not about win or lose. It's about fight. It doesn't matter if you're overwhelming odds. You fight. And I tell people this all the time, even when in court battles. It's not about whether you win or lose. It's about whether you fight.
I know a lot of people look at John like he won some cases, he lost some cases, but every time he takes a loss, they're like, he lost that case. See?
But I fought. Right? I get people all the time that go, well, he ran for sheriff 2 other times. He lost. Yeah. But you know what? How many other people ran? You can condemn me if you ran. Right?
Yeah.
Get in the race.
It's easy to say from the sideline
Get
going,
in the race.
you lost.
I don't mind running the race.
Get your feet wet, dog.
I don't mind being in the Olympics and coming in last because you know what? At least I was running. Right?
Yeah.
So all the people that went, well, I'm not going to do that. Okay, then you know what? When you're ready to get on the track, then you can start condemning me. But the other thing is, I'm going to warn you, I don't have any feelings. You're not going to hurt them.
Yeah, so that.
But compete.
But going back to what your question was, yeah, it's an unconstitutional setup system. It really is, and it's designed now to the point to where they
it's been bastardized by the progressive movement of the 20th century.
Yeah, and it's definitely gotten worse, I think, throughout the last 100 years, right?
It's been bastardized.
Because how do you get a fair trial when, say, Kim Berger, Sarah Lisney, and Tim Parker all eat lunch together? How do you?
Well, from what I've seen, there's not very many fair trials around here anymore.
Well, I can't say that we've had very many trials at all. We went through a 3-year period where there's 840 convictions and felonies and not one jury trial. That should scare the living daylights out of people.
There's not many trials because there is none.
Yeah, so that should scare people to death. That's a broken system. I mean, that is absolutely a characteristic of a broken system. And it's not that the whole system in America is broken. I don't care about America. I don't care about Michigan. I care about Hillsdale County. I care about my neighbors here. I care that they get justice and fairness.
This is how we figure, Lance. The way to change it is to get a constitutional sheriff in place that understands this.
Do we have one of those anywhere?
Well, yeah, we do, but they're far and few between. Mostly in the western states.
Clare County has.
I think it was Clare County that has
one. That's the closest to us now. Well, no. We had Elkhart.
But that's not to say that they don't make mistakes either, Lance. Nobody's perfect. We know that, right?
No.
We're just trying to make it a more perfect
But the fact of the matter is, each person has to be judged, good or bad, on each and every one of their actions, right? That doesn't make hate the sin, love the sinner. But the problem is we've become 6th graders all of a sudden all over the world. I either have to like everything about you or or I have to hate everything about you, right? And so when I like everything about you, when you make a mistake, it's real easy for me to justify it because I have to like everything about you. No, I can look you straight in the face, and we can still be friends, and I can still condemn you for what you did that's wrong. I don't have a problem with that. You can condemn me for something I've done.
If we're friends, I can't do an
doesn't-
investigation.
Doesn't mean that you're not going to be at Thanksgiving dinner, right?
We do have one or
Well, as long as I can forge your name, we're fine.
Well,
you
as
can
long as you don't
in Hillsdale
profit from
County.
it, yeah. Just don't do it on my check, right?
You can in Hillsdale County.
Yeah, you can do it
obviously.
on an IRS form we found because I've got those. Yes, that was horrible.
No, but we have one or two in the state of Michigan. I think we'd be stretching when we say two. So
Right. And that's
there's 80 something counties in the state of Michigan.
83.
So
And that's a little bit of a condemnation on you and I because you and I both are director and co-director of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association for Michigan.
no, I mean it's not because I mean if they're not going to hear it or care about it or.
But the
or-
thing is, how many counties have we reached out to? How many tests have we sent out to see what
Sure.
these sheriffs are doing? How many times have we notified people in their
we're
county
too
whether they've got a
we're
good
too
sheriff
busy
running
trying
or
to work
not?
on our own damn county.
Yeah, I know, and I understand that. But hey, you know what? We got to take the blame where the blame is, and that's our blame. That is ours. Don't say it's not. That is ours.
Man,
That is our shortcoming.
Who's the bully now?
yeah.
Lance still is.
Rutanas. But
I'm calling a spade a spade.
So
That is us. That's our mistake.
The being pessimistic or being realistic, I jive with that because John and I had the conversation earlier that we're not going to see the good change probably in our lifetime. I don't think we will at least.
I have to have hope that there will be.
But there was many people that died before 1776,
There's 700 years of history leading up to the Constitution before it was even signed.
and a lot of those people that died, it's not written in history books.
Well, and a lot of them there are, but the problem is
Not many
revisionist history
compared
that's
to the
been taught
number-
in the John Dewey model of public school has not taught people.
Not many people are in the books that compared to the people that fought.
Well, here's
You
the
know,
thing:
so-
how many of the two of you have heard about the Five Knights case?
No,
Have you heard about that, the Five Knights case?
no,
How many of you know what are in the provisions of the 1100s Charter of Liberty?
no, nothing.
Never
Not
heard
a
it,
sing-
right?
Not a single thing.
How many people know where common law came from?
Nope, not one.
King
not-
Edmund before 1066.
Out of 40,000 people in Hillsdale County, if I was a betting man, I
Mhm.
bet less than 100.
But you see what I'm saying? These are the forefathers to our forefathers. This is what Patrick Henry was talking about when he said this liberty that our forefathers have died for, and we look at those people as our forefathers.
I bet only a couple hundred people could tell you who Patrick Henry is.
Well, shame on us. Shame on us as a nation. Shame on us as a society, right? This is why I do classes every Tuesday night, because there's so many people that don't know this, and it shouldn't be. Here we live in Hillsdale County, where where Hillsdale College is, and we've got so many people who don't know the
Jackson was the
Constitution.
Republican, where the Republican Party started from.
Yeah, under the
like,
Oaks.
Jesus, like we're
Under the Oaks is where it started.
we got the Oaks up in Moscow.
No,
that's a bar.
No, that's a bar. That's not where it started. That's where it ended, probably, but that's not where it started.
Pretty sure that's where it ended.
Yeah, that day, but no, under the Oaks in Jackson, Michigan. That's the very birthplace of the Republican Party.
Yeah, once going back to your thing, Lance, your question is once we started getting in the maritime law, I think that's I don't think it happened overnight as far as like the way that things started creeping
No, it's
in.
the boiling of a frog. It happens over time and very slowly.
That was slowly corrupting. So like I always ask John,
It wasn't done by bad people. It was done by people with the best of intentions.
Right, but I asked John, has freedom ever been here in America? Like, is it real?
Yeah, it's real.
Like, has it ever really been here? I mean, it wasn't here for black people, right? So, like,
Yeah, it was.
So
Yeah, it was.
yeah, you think so?
Yeah, it was.
So, with
Do you realize that there was 3 black presidents before George Washington?
I heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah. See, you need to start coming to my
Yeah,
class.
so, well, 1861. Well, you figure from the late 1700s to 1861, that's only 60, 70 years, right? So, that's not much time. And then once James Buchanan put that, I think it was James Buchanan in 1861. I think that's right. But once that system started, I think that was the slow roll. And then when you got the turn of the century, 40 years later, that's the big roll of progressive ideology.
Well, and it happened even with Lincoln was the first Republican president, and he did a great thing. I mean, he freed the slaves.
It was after he was the next president.
But
after
he
him.
was
it
was
Buchanan? I think so.
but he was the president that actually pushed us closer to federalism. And took us away from the republic idea, even though they named the party the Republican Party. The things that he was forced to deal with in that time did push us closer to federalism, and it gave the federal government more power than the federal government was ever supposed to have. Madison told us what the limited power of the federal government was in Federalist 45, Chapter 6. In which he very much described that the federal government, the only power that the federal government had in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1 through 17, fell into four basic powers: war, peace, negotiation, and foreign commerce. And he said for the most part, foreign commerce would be where the federal government got their money, that they weren't supposed to tax the people in the states, in the sovereign states.
They tariffed, right?
What's that?
Used tariffs?
Tariffs, yeah. Tariffs and yeah. So, I mean, even when you study the bounty payments for cod fisheries debate of 1792, Madison's very clear in his argument there that the government is not supposed to be taking money and picking winners and losers, but the government is still susceptible to the law, that if they damage people in their decisions, that under the law, because the government is under the law, because it's a republic, we are a nation of laws, not of men, that the law was there to make someone whole when someone was injured by a policy. And we've completely forgotten that entire principle in modern America
And that's
today.
why you got to have a victim when there's a crime. If you got a victimless crime, who are you making whole again?
Well, the coffers, of course.
So let me make a correction. Buchanan was from 57 to 61, right after Lincoln was assassinated. So that's when maritime law started going into place, by the way.
Yeah, you're correct on that. Boy, you've done some studying.
I've got it right here.
Oh, he Googled it.
Cheater.
But yeah, he's, here we're getting into national politics and national things. We've got to realize that, national politics, we've gotten to a point where national politics is the distraction.
Well, it's the same type of apathy between the two, though.
True, same type of apathy, but the problem is we like two parties and we like our national elections because I only have to hurl insults at people once every 4 years,
people
right?
People can barely understand two parties. There's no way they could understand three or four.
But I mean, let's face facts. Then I only have to hurl insults at somebody once every 4 years, right? And I only have to go do something once every 4 years. And if I forget that time, then it'll be once every 8 years. But the problem is national government doesn't have an immediate effect on our life. And national government was supposed to be the bottom of the power ring, right?
It kind of does when they want to find me for not having insurance, though.
Well,
it's pretty immediate.
But that's part of the problem, right? It's because we've raised the federal government to have more power than the federal government was intended by our founding fathers.
Correct.
So we've lost the idea, and we have stopped becoming active in our local government. And let's face facts, local government affects you immediately. It doesn't do it over a period of time. It does it immediately. I get these people all the time that they're at every baseball game, they're at every basketball game, they're at every time, they're at all these different places all the time. And you go to a township meeting, and there's maybe one or two people in the audience.
Every time.
And you ask them, how come you don't go? Well, John, I don't have the time. Really, you've got the time to do all these other things, but you can't drive 5 miles to your local township hall on the night that they're having it to ensure to be vigilant and critical of your government, the one that's going to affect you immediately.
If everybody would have went to that meeting, they would have known there was fireworks that one night.
Oh, yeah. But the thing is, even the people that were upset about it, they never even showed up at the meeting. Right?
No, not a clue.
So this is part of that apathy that we're talking about.
What did you guys talk about while I went to the bathroom?
Fireworks.
Oh.
Yeah. We,
Those
we
were
started
exciting.
we started singing the Katy Perry song. You missed
the
it.
Hillsdale fireworks
You
at the
missed it.
college.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if people would have went to the Hillsdale meeting that month, they would have known that the fireworks were happening.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
More participation.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit more about citizen apathy and national politics being the distraction from local politics, and
Well, it's-
because that's really where we've moved to.
And it's stemmed down. So all the apathy just stems down. So people get tired of seeing what's going on nationally. That they think that happens locally too.
Well, and the problem is they don't get very few people get involved locally until there's a problem, and then everybody shows up and it's an angry mob, and then you get the people that are elected sitting on the board and they're complaining because a mob showed up and blah 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 blah.
Like nobody shows up, and all of a sudden now we got a bunch of people show up. That's
Yeah.
we hear it every time we go out to
Yeah,
these board
and
meetings.
I hate hearing that. My thing is whine somewhere else. I don't want to hear it. Nobody held a gun to your head and made you run for the position, so stop whining.
Maybe if you wouldn't have screwed up, people wouldn't have showed up.
Well, there's a good. But the thing is, people should show up so that there isn't a screw up, right? That's what it really comes down to.
Why is that a perfect world though? If there was nobody screwing up, you wouldn't have to show up. But
Well, but the thing is, this is why Madison told us that we have to be vigilant and critical of our government. In local government especially, we have to be vigilant and critical. The problem is too many of us that are vigilant and critical because there's so few of us. We get marginalized and get treated like crap in the media and around town and at all the little service clubs where they
and we're taking the heat.
they
We're
mentioned-
gonna stay in the kitchen.
yeah, where they mention my name and people curse and spit the ground. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all. You can't hurt them, but I know it happens.
But that and this is not exclusive to Hillsdale. I'm sure, like if you lived in Monroe, Michigan,
The same thing
it's
could
the same
happen.
small group of people that are
Same
being
thing.
vocalized on social media.
Same thing.
That their local governments are screwing up, and they get marginalized, like they're quacks or they're militia
Well,
or
those in
they're
power-
negative or
those
they're
in-
haters.
those
the
in-
only counties worse than ours are the ones on each side of us. And I'm sure it's
you think
the same.
so?
Well, no, I'm sure it's the same way for them.
Sure.
Right.
But
well,
those that are in power never like to hear people that are critical and vigilant, right?
Well,
because they've forgotten
the-
what their job
there's
is.
two common things, John, that I heard traveling the country when I was young. Two things are the same thing, no matter where I went to. I don't care where I went to. The cops were bad, and the weed is good. that's the same everywhere you go.
Man, did you have a messed up childhood?
Yeah. Well,
No wonder you wasn't paying attention when you was 10 years old and what was going on.
Yeah.
no. When I say when I was young, I was like 19. Young.
Yeah.
So
Man, did you have a bad childhood?
bad young adult life.
Yeah.
No, it was. But that's a common theme. So I don't. What we got going and what we're experiencing in Hillsdale is not exclusive. I'm sure if you go to Monroe, it's 10 times worse.
It's not exclusive, but and that's because human beings are human beings.
I'm saying we're lucky that and we're blessed to be in a community where we can have a voice, where we can make a difference.
Yeah, that's another thing. We do have to look at some things here. We are vigilant and we're critical, and a lot of times it sounds like we're complaining about everything, and it's not really true. We do take the time to be grateful of things. Why did I raise my family here? Because I love Hillsdale County, because it's a great place to raise a family, because things are a little bit more neighborly here than they were in Jackson or that they are in Detroit. There's a lot of great things here.
I wish a rich person would build a gym here, like for basketball. And
Well,
stuff like that.
here's the thing. When I was growing up, we had a barn, and if you were feeling like you were bored or something, there was always manure to pitch, right?
There's a tennis court and a swimming pool down by Waldron, Reba's.
Oh, there you
Pretty
go.
nice.
So,
I don't want to drive 41 minutes.
I mean,
to
there was
play basketball.
there
That'd
was
probably be 50-some minutes for you.
there was things to do. And I grew up on a farm in Camden, Michigan, and I sometimes I'd start feeling like I was deprived of things. But now that I'm older and I look back, what a blessing it was to grow up on that farm. What a blessing it was to learn how to feed myself. What a blessing it was to learn how to work hard. What a blessing it was to have a family unit that was loving and together. What a blessing it was to have that experience. We do count our blessings, and we do see the things, and that's why we're critical and vigilant, because we do love Hillsdale County. We do love what is here, and we want to keep what is here. We're just trying to make it better.
Lance, what do you think, man? Man, we've been on the air.
It's hard
here
to follow that.
Yeah, I know. We've been on the air for
Just put me on the
almost an
spot,
hour.
why don't you?
Hour and 30 minutes. I get bitched at all the time that our shows are too long.
Well, then
Yeah,
I think
I wonder
maybe-
who does that.
Then I think we might need to bring this to its conclusion.
Well, I mean, we didn't really have a whole lot of topips. We just,
Yeah, we shot from
we
the hip. We do
digressed
that
a
a lot.
Yeah, we digressed a lot in a lot of different areas. I think it was quite interesting. I don't know if everybody else will think
But
it,
I'm sure somebody that's got an hour and a
Oh, well.
half drive listening to this,
Hopefully
maybe
isn't
it'll
in the
keep
dish
them
from falling
awake.
asleep.
maybe it'll keep them awake.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we did something
Man.
good. I don't know.
Maybe they find it interesting and they keep them awake. I mean, I would find it interesting, but that's me, right?
Yeah,
I'm
you're
biased.
warped.
Right. So, well, everybody, God bless.
Yeah.
Peace.
Read your constitutions.
Lance, why don't you say goodbye, man?
Bye.
He's a bully.